Today in the Diz List, we count down our top 5 favorite attractions at Epcot 2024 edition.
Welcome to the Diz List, the podcast that ranks everything in Walt Disney World. I'm Nick.
And I'm Rob, and welcome to episode 84, where we count down our top 5 favorite attractions at Epcot 2024 edition.
There's so many changes coming, to the parks, and we've got some new attractions at Epcot I haven't experienced yet.
Right.
So I do think it's fun to refresh our list. The last time we did a list on Epcot, we hadn't been on 2 of the main big hitters that are in Epcot now.
That's right.
But across the way in Orlando, some big stuff is happening.
Yeah. So I left school. What day was it? Tuesday? Wednesday?
I can't remember what day it was I texted you.
Yeah, I left school and I look at my phone and it's from Nick. He goes, how did you say it? Did you see?
I said, did you
see a social media for Universal?
Yeah.
And I'm like, this has got to be interesting. So I looked. This is what a weirdo I am. I looked on their social media, and it started playing this kind of promo for Epic Universe. I texted Nick back, and I go, I'm not watching it on my phone. I'm like, if this is an announcement for Epic Universe, I got to watch it on my TV. So I stopped watching, drove home, put it up on the TV, and watched it all the way through. And then, I was so excited that, I yelled to my son. I said, Bennett, get up here. Come watch this. What is it, Dad? I go, you're going to love it. So, every different land, and we'll talk about it in a second, every land that came up that they talked about they're doing, he goes, I'm going to love this. No, I'm going to love this. I'm really going to, all 4 of, well, there's 5, but one is sort of more general and generic. Mm-hmm. But he thought they were all up his alley, stuff he liked.
All I can say is this. It literally has changed our potential plans for 2025, which was originally, hey, we'll go out to Hawaii, to Aulani, maybe stop in Disneyland. And now I'm like, Aulani can be hard to get at 7 months in the summer for a DVC owner. Maybe we'll be doing a split stay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
The idea of the portals is
it's cool.
Wow, that's a really smart thing.
Yeah, my wife said that was the coolest part for her.
You know what it kind of reminds me of? Do you remember the footage that that Ear Scouts had from Disneyland Paris?
Yeah.
Where it seemed very clear that they were going into a new land.
Yes.
It's like that, but to the nth degree.
Because it's just a giant, 3/4 of a circle, I would say is the best way to describe it. Like you take a letter C and you put it on its side.
Yeah, it's like walking through. I mean, when you're going to Galaxy's Edge, right? You do have to walk through that tunnel or archway. You know what I mean?
If you enter over by Pizza Rizzo and
correct.
the Muppets area.
Yeah. It's really a smart idea. Now, I don't know, based on the renderings, how the flow will be if you always have to go back out to that main hub. So for those of you who haven't seen it, first off, pause what you're doing right now and go watch that video. It's 7 minutes that you're not going to regret watching.
Yeah, and side note, whoever their CEO is, I can't remember his name. You're better with names than me.
I can't remember it either.
He seems like really, really on the ball. He seems outgoing and friendly and smart. Like all the things you would want in a CEO for...
I mean, I'm sure that he's money driven too, but maybe it's just because we are inundated with Iger and Tomorrow.
Well, he just seems grounded. I mean... Yeah. Bob Iger is, and I love Bob Iger, and I always talk about how I love his book and learned a lot about him. But, Chapek did not have that kind of leadership ability that Iger has, this guy has. I even think Josh Tomorrow is a little bit more down to earth, and
he's more charismatic.
He is. I like listening to him talk. And sometimes, and we're social people and we have to interact with kids every day. So we can kind of read social cues and expressions. And I feel like you can tell when someone's not being honest or transparent, genuine.
Yeah.
And I really feel like that's got to be something that's mandatory for this job. And I feel like Josh has it.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm getting way off on a tangent. Let's get back. Get back to Epic Universe.
So he announced they start off with showing this main hub, which I guess you could think of it as like almost like almost like their version of the Main Street USA, and that hub is basically called Celestial Park.
Right. And then that counts as one of their 5 lands.
Correct.
Right.
And then off of that, there are 4 different parks that go off of that land. You have the Mario Land, or Super it's not Mario, but it's Super Nintendo World. And then you've got the
Universal Monsters.
Yeah, but I was trying to think of is it Isle of Berk is the name of that's the name of How I Met Your Dragon.
Yes.
Or How to Train Your Dragon.
How I Trained Your Mother. That's even worse.
Wow. So
two funny combos there.
Yeah.
An entire land based on that sitcom.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah.
That's actually really funny.
So How to Train Your Dragon, which at first I was like, how are they going to do a whole land?
I think it looks cool because it's all kind of Viking and dragon themed.
And they straight up said, oh yeah, and by the way, you're going to get to fly a dragon. Mm-hmm. So my suspicion is you're going to get a flight of passage style ride.
Cool.
In there. That's what I think. Now it's just a prediction, right? Mm-hmm. But then you've got the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, Ministry of Magic.
Yep.
Which is awesome. So look, this place is going to be amazing. And Disney's got to answer it. In fact, we're going to do a mini episode over on Patreon about that. As soon as we're done recording this, we're going to record our mini episode. The mini episode will actually be up before this, but it doesn't matter.
It's okay.
So head on over to Patreon if you wanted to hear us discuss that. Patreon.com/DizListPod. But we are going to do a deep dive into what Disney needs to do, because they're going to need to do something, because wow.
And I think as of now, their answer is another parade.
Can you imagine?
I'm serious. Yeah, that's what I've heard. Another parade.
Yeah, let's do another one.
Yeah, that'll really compete with an entire land.
Land? It's an entire park.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You're right.
That's doubling the size. Like, that's the thing the guy said. He's like, we're going to double the size of Universal Orlando Resort. Now, let's think about that for a moment. Okay? They're doubling the size. One of the things he said was, we're going to make it so that this is now a week-long destination.
Yeah.
If that does not wake Disney up to, oh crap, because right now, my suspicion is 75% of the visitors at Universal are not going to Orlando, or those people who stay at the resort. You know what I mean? Like, whose vacation is to I'm not talking about day guests that are annual pass holders. So those who come to Orlando and then go to Universal. My bet is that 75% of them do like 3 or 4 days at Universal, because I don't know that you could do a full week yet. And then they do some days over at Disney. Well, guess what? You add that park in, and now it's a week-long stay. Disney's not getting any of that money.
Yeah, my 2 cents on that is, well, I'm going to go back in time a little bit. I talked a little bit about this on my Patreon origin story. I think in the early 90s, I'm not positive exactly when Universal Orlando opened, but when it opened, we are a family that goes to Orlando every single year. And there was a good period of time where we did not go to Disney.
Yeah.
And we only went to Universal every year. And that was kind of before the days where there weren't a ton of parks, so we would we would go down, and like doing 2 different parks was a big deal for us, because my parents
Animal
were teachers.
Kingdom wasn't open at that time.
No, we didn't have a ton of money, so it was okay. This year we're going to do Magic Kingdom. This year we're going to do Epcot, and then it got to the point where Universal Studios was so cool that my sister and I loved it that we just went there only. So back to my point, there's a lot of current modern things that kids are going to like. I mean, younger boys and girls are into all these. Well, not all. Who knows who's into Universal Monsters? I know it's kind of for the older crowd, which I think is awesome, and my son likes. But if you look at Harry Potter, It appeals to huge wide range of ages,
Yep.
boys and girls.
Yep.
And I always do this in our podcast, boys and girls and gender neutral.
Right, yeah.
And also we look at Super Mario, which is for anybody. It's probably a better term for you to use. Anybody.
Yeah.
Any age.
Yeah.
Because we grew up with it too.
Yes. Yes.
So anybody from, 55 and under.
Oh, and by the way,
Yeah.
what's one of the most popular IPs that Disney owns? Marvel. And guess where you can find Marvel?
Yeah.
The only real place you can find multiple Marvel characters other than the Guardians of the Galaxy is at Universal as well.
Well, I heard some rumors this week
Okay, go
that
ahead.
they're thinking about potentially selling that off.
That Universal's thinking about that?
It's a rumor I heard this week.
Okay.
Rumor, folks, that we are not reporting news. That is a rumor that Universal can make some quick money by selling off the park rights to those characters.
I mean, they could pay for part of Epic Universe.
That's what I'm saying.
And look, all I can say is this. I have so many things that like Disney needs to do to talk about when we do this Patreon later. But the one thing I'll say here for everybody to hear is it cannot be, let's put more characters in the park.
Nope.
It cannot be, let's bring back, a nighttime parade. It can't be, here's a new fireworks spectacular. It can't be, let's refurbish Journey into Imagination. It can't be more Moanas. Like, those are things it can't be.
No.
So, I don't know what they're going to do, but if Bob Iger and Josh D'Amaro didn't watch that and go, uh-oh, then I don't know what they watched, because I legitimately said, is our podcast now going to be something different? Because, like, wow. Like, it's remarkable. If I can go and stay a week at Universal, I'm not going to do a week at Universal and a week at Disney. I'm going to do a week at Universal.
You didn't even say this part yet. You can stay for a week in or connected to the park now.
Yeah.
Because they have a hotel that is part of the park.
And it's called a Premier Hotel. And gee, what is Premier Hotel? What do you get for staying there? Oh, you get early entry. Okay, cool. But you get that for all of them. Oh, by the way, you also get their Express Unlimited Pass. So for like 90% of their rides, wave your card and you go to the front of the line for free if you stay in one of those rooms.
Yeah, it's great.
Now, I know it's not for free if you want to add it on to your ticket, but when I stay deluxe at Disney, which DVC resorts are deluxe, I don't get that.
Mm-hmm.
I get an extra hour in Epcot where they tell me, no, this part of the park is closed. You have to walk all the way around.
Oh, God.
I know you can see Norway. I know you can see it from here, but you have to turn around and walk the other way because we close at France. That's what I get. That's my extra bonus for staying deluxe.
I'm sure they're right, and they wouldn't have released this if this wasn't true, but in their little promo, they say something about the fact that the hotel, this is the only hotel in the world that's connected to the parks
No.
How did they word it?
They didn't word it like that. They said this is going to be a unique, basically they said it was unique to them. I believe that the reason is that they're saying that is because like you're literally like in the park. So like
as opposed to the Grand Californian, kind of. Well,
Grand California is not inside of the gates.
No, you're
not.
You're
neither
right.
is Disneyland Paris.
It's Well, it's not connected. It's literally on the border. It's built
right
around the perimeter of California.
This hotel, Helios, appears to be inside of the gates. That's what it looked like to me. We'll find out.
But there has to be parking on the adjacent side. Another entrance, there has to be.
There's no parking at Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, but
that's the whole, like, there's not.
Yeah, but
there's no reason that they couldn't do the same thing.
Yeah, and they probably would have showed that too. You really think the hotel is in the park?
I'm not going to put it past them because they built this whole damn park in like 2 days compared to like what Disney did.
Yeah.
They have, look, it's announced for 2025, right? Yeah. Disney, at about the time that they announced Epic Universal, Disney announced, you're going to get a new Splash Mountain. Splash Mountain isn't going to be finished probably.
Yeah. When is that slated to open?
Well, I mean,
December?
who knows, right? It took them 4 years to make Tafiti in the middle of Epcot.
That
It's okay to call Disney out for these things, but yeah, all I can say is there is going to be a fun discussion over on Patreon today.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know. I was shocked. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. So that's our little plug for Universal right now.
Well, we may have to change the name of our show.
The Universalists.
The Orlando list. Then we can just list everything.
We just have 2 shows.
Yeah. Some people do that, actually.
Dislist and Universalist.
Yeah.
Universalist is actually a word, so that makes a little bit more sense. So,
if you're still listening, thank you.
Yeah. This week we do have a featured design over on at magicmerch.art.
It's funny too,
and it's for all of you lovers of the most hideous tasting, although I actually like it, thing over in Club Cool called Beverly. So we have a shirt up called the Beverly.
I've never had it.
Really?
I've been to Epcot. I can't even count how many times
I've never had it at
and
Epcot.
I've never done it.
I had it in Vegas.
Oh, really?
They have a Club Cool there.
Okay.
A Coca-Cola one. And I can see its uses. I wouldn't drink it straight.
What's it taste like?
Like something that needs to have some gin and vodka in it.
Is it a cola?
No, it's a non-alcoholic aperitif. It's bitter, a little bit. It's astringent, but it's like you would never take in like, hey, just give me a glass of soda water. Like I wouldn't anyway.
No,
but you mix with it. I feel like this would be a good thing to mix with.
Beverly's a base for something else.
Originally, that's what it was designed for. Yes, for like mocktails or for actual mixing. But now it's actually since 2009. I think it got discontinued.
Huh.
So it's actually not made in Italy anymore. It's not made at all. But just for like Club Cool, like as a thing. So that's my understanding anyway. So yeah, go check that out over at magicmerch.art or follow the links in our bios over on Instagram. And this week's halftime show is brought to you by Rachel D. Thank you very much, Rachel.
We'll see you after the break.
Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about our top 5 attractions at Epcot, the 2024 edition. We thought it was time to update this list since the last time we did it was prior to going to our trip in 2022.
Well, we say our tastes change. I mean, this is something you could do every January or February if we wanted to.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not saying let's do that. I'm not making an executive decision right now. No. What I'm saying is like, there's so much change, and my opinion changes based on so many different things. Not just adding new rides, but maybe they make different policies, or there's a different show, or meet and greet. I mean, who knows? I mean, it's minor stuff, but things could shift and change for me.
Well, just think about it this way, right? So you go on certain rides at Disney that break down a lot. Okay, let's say they fix those rides. And now they don't break down. Well, now all of a sudden,
that one's another favorite.
That goes up.
Yeah.
Or vice versa, one starts to break down and show its age, it goes down the list. You know, I'm sure at some point.
But sorry,
no,
I'm totally interrupting because I just thought of something.
You're good.
Like they're talking about potentially redoing Test Track.
Yeah.
Which is a ride I like, but if it's closed,
well, it's not potential. I mean, it's happening.
Well, let's say it closes this year or next year. It's not on my list anymore if I'm not going on it.
Oh, you just spoiled your list, man.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, I'd said it wouldn't. I'm saying in the future it wouldn't be on my list if it was closed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would put something else that I enjoy on a regular basis, which also is kind of a big thing for Epcot as it exposes how much there is available to go on and how many rides and attractions there are. But to be fair, I mean, Animal Kingdom's kind of the same way.
Animal Kingdom's really small.
But the difference is Animal Kingdom doesn't, I mean, they have a similar thing to World Showcase because they have, different, continents, and I don't want to call them lands, but you can walk through and kind of enjoy that as well. So, it is similar.
Yeah. I think that changing our tastes change. And so therefore updating these lists are, it's because I can tell you my list is not the same as what it was.
Right. And as a listener too, if I'm not on the show and I'm listening to the show, and the whole purpose we did this was because I love lists and I will tune in to different YouTube stations and podcasts where they count things down because I want to know, okay, what do they say is their top thing? Like, I love that. So moving forward, that was the whole purpose we decided to do this podcast. So I'm thinking if this changes every year, I'm still like, oh, cool. I wonder what it is now. I'm gonna listen to this podcast and check out what their top 5 is. So
Absolutely.
anyway, we're pulling the curtain back a little bit.
Yeah.
I love this stuff. This is great. And I love kind of discussing and going back every year and discussing the stuff that's my favorite. All 4 parks, attractions, that's my bread and butter right there.
Yeah.
But the bread's gluten-free. Anyway.
So go ahead and why don't you start us off with your number 5 attraction at Epcot?
My number 5 is, it's kind of funny. You'd put this in other parks and it wouldn't potentially make the list, but and I also don't know how younger people would feel about this specific attraction, and Spaceship Earth. I love Spaceship Earth for so many reasons, and I wonder how much of it is nostalgia and how much of it is like, is it a cool, interesting, relevant ride? Is the teen crowd, and I think even like that older, 20s and 30s, they're like, this is cool. Like we love some of the older nostalgia stuff at the park, but I'm wondering from the eyes of a teen or some younger, I mean, we'd have to ask our kids this. I mean, my kids think it's cool, it's fun. They have one big issue with this ride. Yeah, and I'm going to guess this is probably on your list too, but you don't have to say it. My biggest issue, our biggest issue, that is always the takeaway at the end, is how the screens and they do the interactive thing where they take your picture never works properly. So it always ends in a hilarious disaster.
You're not wrong. I think the ride vehicles need to be updated. But
it's weird. They like kind of shake, and I don't know. It's just, I almost feel like it's a weird material. Like it's this weird, almost slippery. Like, what are they made? Are they fiberglass? Well, I mean, what are those things made of?
I think so.
But it's ultra slick, smooth fiberglass. I don't know.
It's
weird.
I feel like they were made by the same people who made People Mover, like the People Mover cars.
Yeah, that's a good comparison, I think. And I think those People Mover cars kind of rattle and shake back and forth the same way. Mm-hmm. But the most rickety part, and every time this happens, I go, whoa, is the door. When the door goes to close, it's like on old Star Trek episodes where they have to like close the doors. Someone backstage is pulling a lever and it kind of goes in this weird speed every time.
Yeah.
That's inconsistent.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You're right.
So that's a lot. I know, but I love a little bit of, I like the educational aspect of it. I just like the idea of the animatronics, and I like to look at them and go, oh, I think I've seen that animatronic before. I think that one's in Haunted Mansion. Oh, maybe I've seen that animatronic before. Anyway, I love it. I'm curious your thoughts and to see if it ended up on your list. What did you have for 5?
My number 5 is Frozen.
Okay.
So I am not like you, and I never experienced it other than Frozen. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that some people knock this further down their list because they miss the original, right?
Sure.
For me, this is a great ride. I like it. I love the queue. Like when you go through and you've got wandering Okins and like he's in the sauna. It's like, ooh, he's like he's like wiping the fog off, the window there. I think it's a great ride. I think the animatronics. I wish the animatronics were updated to the ones that you see overseas. I think it's Shanghai.
I think it is Shanghai.
That has the it's not projection mapping, but it's like the nice new actual faces.
Let me ask you this. If you hadn't have seen that, would you just be okay with what's there currently?
I will be honest with you. The first time I rode it, I feel like the faces and the facial mapping was better. And I always ask myself the same question you just asked me. Is this because now I've watched the better animatronics, or is it because that the coloration has changed? I feel like the coloring has changed and that the projection onto the face
Like the bulb?
Is brighter.
The bulb is a little...
No, like the bulb is good.
Okay.
But that the skin color of the animatronic over the years has darkened.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when you have wood in your house and you have sunlight that comes in and
fades.
Yeah, fades it.
Yeah.
I almost said oxidize. It doesn't really oxidize.
No.
But I kind of feel like that is what's happened here. I could be wrong. I was stuck on that ride once. Did you know that? Did I ever tell you that story?
It's a great story. Tell it.
So we got all the way to the end, and it just stopped moving, and we're in the scene at the very end scene, right?
Is it when you go past the snow monster?
It's the very end. Like the door is about to open for the onload.
Gotcha.
And you're at the wedding. You know what I mean? Like the very, very, very end.
Yeah.
And we're just watching that scene over and over again. I figured, they're just loading somebody on or off, whatever. And as it turns out, there had been an electrical storm come through. So what I mean by that is that it was a rather eventful rainstorm. It was like super, super big. And
the rain that hurts, the Orlando rain that hurts your skin when it hits you.
Well, it wasn't that. It was literally lightning bolt after lightning bolt after lightning bolt that had come through. And it struck something in one other park somewhere else, not at Epcot, but somehow every park, like if you looked at your phone, every ride at every park was down for like 10 minutes. And so they had to come through and get us off the ride. For most rides, it's not a big deal. It was like people move or whatever, it's down and then it starts moving again. This one, like they had to reset the ride. And in order to reset the ride, they had to get us out. And it was, so you're in the boat and all of a sudden they're like, please stay still. We're going to have to evacuate you. The water starts to go down.
You were telling me about that. You said it went super fast?
Yeah, they drained the water in like 3 minutes.
Oh my God.
And
that's gallons and gallons of water.
Yeah, so it was like I was on a pontoon boat. If you've never been on a pontoon boat, usually you drive into this lift, the lift goes up and pulls you out of the water. It was like that, but in reverse. So the water was going down instead of the boat going up. And then like you came to rest on the tracks and you had to get out and there are steps. So the water drains and you stepped out of the boat onto the step and we were right at the exit. They could have I guess they couldn't open that door because they took us through the back way.
What was it like back there? Just halls?
Yeah, it was just halls. Yeah.
Okay.
We went out through this emergency door and then like through these halls and they gave us a free, back then it was a fast pass. They gave us a free fast pass.
I've never had
and we did the whole ride.
I've never had an evacuation.
We did the whole ride. It was cool.
I can't count how many times I've been to Disney and how many rides I've been on. Never had that.
Yeah, that's the only one and that was my first trip to Disney. So,
wow.
But yeah, number 5 for me is Frozen.
That's cool.
I like that ride. I love it.
While you were talking, and you got to remind me after we're done recording here, there is a photo of Nick and I on the Frozen ride. It's great.
Yeah, yeah.
So that might have to be part of our promotional material this week.
Sure.
So if you're listening and you've seen it already,
yeah,
I think that's a funny one.
Yeah,
it's way more embarrassing for me.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a good one. Anyway, so my 5 was Spaceship Earth. Your 5 was Frozen. Mm-hmm. I think given the nature of this park and how there's big guns and heavy hitters, we're probably going to repeat these a couple times.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with number 4. And when I was doing my list and I came to my number 4, I was trying to remember the original version of this ride. And you're probably thinking, oh my God, he's going to say Imagination. I am not. I am saying Test Track. Because before that, it was a ride called World of Motion, which I know my father really liked and he enjoyed. So I know we went on it every time. But this is one of the rides that I don't know why, but I don't have a super clear memory of this. And my memories from that time, like I can't really remember things that happened last week at this point in my life, but I can remember really well all of those times when I was little. And my parents and my sister will tell you that's true too. They can't believe the stuff that I can remember from when we were there. This ride, World of Motion, I cannot recall. I may have to go onto YouTube and like rewatch. I'm sure it's there somewhere.
So your number 4 is Test Track.
Yeah, okay, so it's Test Track. And and I'm getting to my point here.
Oh, that's
my point was, and I can't remember if we said this in the first half or the second half of the show, but they're going to be closing it down. And they mentioned recently at D23 that they were going to bring in elements of World of Motion back.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, they did mention that.
So that, when I was thinking of this ride, I was like, I wonder what they're going to bring back. And I could not remember that ride very well.
Yeah, I mean, I've
I don't
never
know
been on
why.
it, so I wouldn't know.
And the other thing I will say about Test Track is, we'll talk about over on the West Coast, people will mention how Radiator Springs Racers is the same ride. It is not the same ride. There is two things that are similar, and the reason I bring that up too is, feel free, Disney, if you're listening, which I'm positive they are, maybe not, to bring Cars Land over. The two things that are the same is the tractor trailer comes right at you, which is the same, and then you race at the end, or you have a car going fast at the end. It's, that one is more of a race, but
this is a very unique attraction.
Yeah, and I know it's on. I'm gonna guess it's on your list, maybe. And if it is on your list, I'm giving you a little bit. I'm leaving one part of this off. You're shaking your head.
So I'm gonna tell you. I'll spoil
Really?
this. This is not on my list. And
Seriously,
let me tell you why it's not on my list.
I am shocked, and then I'll tell you why I'm shocked. Go ahead.
Okay, it's not on my list, and this is one that came off of my list that was way up top for me the first
All right,
time
this
around.
is a big deal.
It is off because it breaks down all the time.
I know.
So at the beginning of the show, we were talking about, things changed because the last trip we went on, we did not get to ride it. We were in line 4 separate times.
Oh, I remember this. Yeah.
4 separate times we got into line for Test Track, and all 4 times we got shut down. One time right before we got to the design room, one time after we had designed it.
Ugh.
It's always breaking down, but it's a unique ride in that Chevy literally gets to design. I mean, they're the sponsor, and they're putting the money in, and that alone is reason enough for me to say bring Radiator Springs Racers over. So go ahead. You were going to say something.
Well, I know you, and I know that. Actually, we're both similar in this aspect where certain traditions with our children makes things more special for us.
I agree.
Specifically, especially as parents. And I know you, because I was there for this, that the building of the car is something cool and special between you and your son.
Yeah.
But I am not going to argue this at all. Arguing is part of the fun thing about our podcast. I get it, because it's hard for me to say, well, it should still be on your list because of the special time between your son. Like, I get that part of the problem Disney has is being able to maintain these rides, and then it dropped off of your list because of a specific thing that happened to you.
Look,
so I can't argue that. I get it.
Yeah, the first time I rode it, my son and I we were in the hotel, and my wife was like, "You guys can head over early. We're gonna take our time getting ready." So he and I, we grabbed Pop-Tarts or whatever, rode the monorail over, headed straight to Test Track. Did that together. The only thing he wanted that day was a license, one of those license plate, the souvenir license plates. And it said Test Track on it. I was like, if that's what you want, man, we'll get it.
Cool.
So we'll get that. Came out. We listened to the Jameters were playing over in that area.
Yep.
And it was so cool because it was so special. It was just he and I in the park doing that. And now I just look back and I'm like, I wish every time was like that and special like that. And I wouldn't mind waiting 45 minutes in the ride if it meant I was walking 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But without fail, every time I'm in line for that ride, every time, we stop not because of weather, we stop because of a computer thing. Mm-hmm. It's not just, never mind the fact that if there's any rain in the area or any lightning in the area, they shut down. Well, it's Orlando, and we go in the summer. So
there's lightning and rain every day at 4:00.
Yeah, and it just is what it is. It's a problem, and that's why it doesn't make my list. But I understand why it made yours. I totally do. I love the attraction when it works. It's no different than why I pulled Rise of Resistance off or lower when we had done Hollywood Studios.
Well, that episode's coming up soon too.
Yeah,
Let's see what happens.
Yeah, so
may not make your list at all.
Who knows after my experience last time.
Wow.
But yeah, so Test Track didn't make it.
Wow.
For me. I know that's shocking.
Well, I got your take on it too, even though it's not on your list.
Yeah.
So that was my 4. Now we're on your 4.
My 4 is something that was on your list, is Spaceship Earth.
Okay.
I love Spaceship Earth.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something. why I like it. It is reliable.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's very reliable.
Yeah.
If it does stop moving, it's because they're loading somebody who needs help being loaded.
And I think Omni Movers are a huge plus
Yeah.
for
And
the parks. They are people eaters to the max.
the line can wrap all the way around Spaceship Earth, and
It's still moving.
it's moving, and you're on it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It's great in the middle of the day when, you know, it's super hot out. I don't like riding it early in the morning or like, because let's be honest, it's right at the entrance. It's like you walk into this park and boom, there's a ride. So it's like, let's go. So sometimes you if you want to ride it in the morning, you might be in it a little bit longer. I love mid-afternoon rides on Spaceship Earth. It's great if it's like super hot. It's great if it's raining because you can get out of the weather. I like, because that line, even though you're outside for most of it, that for some reason that area is such a wind tunnel. Like when you go and you're getting under, like when you're underneath the ball, if you will, that wind is whipping right there, cools you off. I love the ride. The smells. I will say it would be higher on my list if they updated some of the storytelling.
They keep talking about that.
So
too.
I think they need to update the ride vehicles. And I do think that, look, they finish off with Steve Jobs in a garage.
Yeah.
It's like,
well,
Jobs and Woz.
a lot have happened since then.
Yeah. It's like, well, they made a really cool, innovative computer called the Apple IIe.
Yeah.
Oh, let's not forget that now we carry around something in our pockets that's more powerful.
Yeah.
Like, so I do think there's space for them to kind of change those stories, but they're not. I don't think it's getting updated anytime soon. Not after they dumped all that money in already. And I think writing on the wall is that they're moving on. They're going over to Magic Kingdom for sure. And now I've heard that Animal Kingdom is going to get skipped and go right to Hollywood Studios.
I heard that rumor too.
So
because more people are going to Hollywood Studios.
Yep. So that's my number 4 is Spaceship Earth. I don't want to beat that horse because you have already talked about it, and I agree with everything you said.
Yeah.
So what's your number 3?
My number 3 is one that you've already talked about.
Okay.
And I like to think of it kind of as the Pirates of the Caribbean of Epcot, and that is Frozen.
It's I can't argue with that description of it.
I like to think of the fact that since this kind of became an overlay, quote unquote, because, you know, Maelstrom, it was a cool ride. I remember it clearly. I enjoyed it. The trolls were kind of scary in a cool way. Part of the ride is there was a door that was open where it looks like your boat is going to go straight out the door and over the edge. And I'm pretty sure, and I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's where
It's to let it
Elsa,
go.
Yeah, okay. I thought so. So I remember that ride, and when I heard it was going to be Frozen, and I guess I've been pretty consistent with this across the board, is I was like, okay, cool, whatever. You know, I'm sure that'll be cool too. You know, it's going to bring more people in the park. It's Frozen. And the music in that ride is awesome. Like when Let It Go comes on and she kind of lets you go and you go backwards. Like it's a really powerful moment. The animatronic, especially Olaf, is just so smooth. I love the Olaf animatronic. I agree with you on the scene where they project their faces in there. It's a little cheesy, but overall, I think it's a fun ride. And I like the fact that, I'll get back to my original point here that I kind of missed, is that comparing it to Pirates of the Caribbean, I would never think that there would be a Frozen ride that would have even an element of thrill at all. You know what I mean? Because if they were going to build a Frozen ride from scratch, maybe a dark ride similar to, you know, Peter Pan or something like that.
Navi
right?
River Journey.
Yeah,
something
exactly.
Like that, yeah.
And that would be great. But the fact that they put it on a ride that actually is, you know, kind of a water, I don't know if you call it flume, that style of ride. I'm not sure if that's what they use as a description, but having even that, I don't know if you even want to call it a mild drop. I would even call it like it's a
bigger drop than Pirates.
Yeah, I would say it's somewhere between mild and medium. I would say an extreme drop is, you know, probably like Everest, for example. That's a big drop. Mm. But this one's a little bigger than mild, and I like it. Like maybe that's a reason that, you know, dads like us who, well, maybe not like dads like us, we're a little more Disney focused and we're cool with riding the Frozen ride. let's say you have a dad who's not really into Frozen at all, okay?
I
Or
think
mom too,
yeah.
it won't matter. A parent who's not into Frozen, and they go, all right, fine, I'm going to go on this stupid ride with my kid. They go on the ride, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, this is really cool.
The ride stands on its own, I think, is basically the message that you're trying to get across,
Yeah.
and I agree with you.
But I like the fact that it was an overlay over something else that's still related to that part of the world, and it like fit too perfectly. Except for, I think the weird part when it first was announced was they're putting Frozen in Epcot. Shouldn't they put Frozen in Magic Kingdom? Like that's the Princess Park. Would make a little bit more sense there. But
This was the first ride that kind of the dominoes started to fall.
yeah, and I'm okay with that. And then Magic Kingdom decided, well, we're going to do this whole show, this giant show in front of the castle that's all Frozen based. Mm-hmm. And they come out and they sing and everybody loves it. And that show is great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I forgot what that's called. I'm bad with the names for those.
The stage show?
Yeah, there's a name for it though.
Yeah, I can't remember.
But it's very good. Mm-hmm. It's very good. And those songs, I'll tell you, as a musician, that Let It Go song and even the one in the sequel, that husband and wife team that wrote that song, they are on point. That is a hit song right there.
Well, it's a great attraction in general. Mm-hmm. I think if you get a chance to go back and if you're looking for, just look up the history of the whole Maelstrom ride and like how the cultural team from Norway was like very particular about all the stuff they wanted in it. It's actually kind of funny. But yeah, I love that ride. That's why it was on my list. It's not at 3. But yeah, I agree.
It actually went up a little bit over Test Track. I don't know, a couple reasons, which I just listed, but I think it's better.
Yeah.
It's better in my eyes. I think that's changed. I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah.
What'd you have for 3?
My 3 is something that I think probably is not on your list.
Imagination?
No.
Oh, that's my number 1.
Okay.
No, it's not. Maybe it is.
Mine's Living with the Land.
Okay. I'm not surprised for you. That is not on my list. But
so number 3 for me, Living with the Land.
I know you love that ride.
I love this ride. It is so cool.
Is it because
it's never the same ever. The plants are different every time. I hear something new every time when they're talking. We can point out things that we grow in our garden. It's a cool ride, and I just love going through that and seeing these. Sometimes there's strange things there. Sometimes there's like very common things there. You see a tomato plant that's like, 10 foot tall. I just think it's great and it's innovative. And what I like about it is even if you're not doing the behind the seeds tour, which I've done, that ride is behind the scenes. Yeah, you're literally going through it, and seeing this. Now you learn a heck of a lot more that you didn't know doing the behind the seeds tour, and I would highly recommend anybody do it. It's not that expensive, and it's a good time. But I just love that ride. It's calm. It's out of the heat.
It's the closest ride that has anything to do with the Buffalo Bills.
Go Bills! Yeah, yeah. Every time you go by the Buffaloes, go Bills.
I do. I don't yell it. My wife gets mad, but I will say "Go Bills" audibly.
It does. We did have a show where we ranked the worst animatronics, and I put the dog from the farmhouse scene as my worst animatronic, one of my worst animatronics, because when you're eating upstairs, you hear that dog barking over and over again. Ugh. So that's a little bit annoying, but I'm always just like, let your dog in. I just can't stand people who leave their dogs outside. So I don't, you could take that first part of the ride away. I wouldn't care. Like, just give me the greenhouses and going through the aquaculture section with the fish and stuff. It's really cool.
Every time I ride that ride and they have the part where there's the fish tank and the water from the fish tank is filtered into like the fertilizer for the plants. Mm-hmm. Every time I go, man, I should do that. I should just get a fish bowl at home and let the fish do their thing and then just empty it out and use it on the plants. There's all these really interesting, innovative things like vertical growing, and I don't know. I mean, I agree, it's cool. It's not my top 5, but it's awesome.
I knew it wouldn't be, and it's probably not on a lot of people's top, but there are a lot of people, fans of this ride, love this ride, and I love this ride.
Well, it's like a Country Bears thing.
Yeah.
Like, this is your Country Bears.
Yeah. There's no way I could put it higher than 3 though. But it's definitely.
If you did, I'd be surprised if you put it at 1. I could see it at 2.
We'll see. Go ahead. What's your 2?
Our 2 and 1, I am 95% are the same.
Me too.
Okay. Our number 2 is, well, I think, our first time we experienced this together.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So right after this opened, this is when we went on our vacation together, and there's some hilarious pictures. I think we should post the Frozen one, but there's some great pictures of Nick and I with the 3D glasses riding on Ratatouille.
Yeah.
Ratatouille is my number 2. I'm going to assume it's your number 2.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it was fun experiencing this ride with you for the first time. You and I are both just like, we were like little kids. We were so excited on this ride. We're like, this is so cool.
Well, here's the thing.
And our wives are laughing at us. Like, look at these 2 big buffoons loving this.
Well, the thing is this. Like, on our trip together, we didn't get to do a lot of stuff where it was like either of our firsts.
Yeah.
I mean, I did some stuff that was my first that wasn't obviously yours.
Like Country Bears.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but there was not, like, this was the first ride we rode that day. And it was it was both of our firsts.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like so exciting.
We were so pumped.
And we had kind of gamed the system, and we got yelled at by the booth guy at Beach Club. But whatever, we were getting breakfast.
Yep.
We got breakfast at the marketplace, and went in the back because we really wanted to ride it. And man, nothing will beat that first time.
Yeah.
But here's what I'll tell you. Every single time I go on it, I see something else. I'm like, wow, that theming is amazing.
I remember after the ride, I can't remember what it was. You probably do. You're like,
the wheels.
Yeah. And I go, I didn't even see that. You're like, yeah, it was so cool. And then the next time I looked for it and saw it, and you're right. There's so many different things.
The screws through the wall.
Uh-huh.
Like they do such a good job of shrinking you down as you're going through that queue.
And the smell, I remember smelling, is it cookies? Or something.
It's the chicken stuff they're baking.
I remember smelling something during the ride, and there was so much going on that I didn't even really focus on what the smell was because they immerse you in the ride so much that
There's the jump scare, right? There's the jump scare that got us both, where they sprayed us with champagne.
They do. It's true. Oh my God, it's a great ride. It's I think at a lot of parks it could be a number 1. Again, I'm going to guess that we have the same number 1.
Look, if there's anybody who's listening is like, I wonder what their number 1 is. You've never listened before. And if that's the case, welcome. But if you're listening and you've listened frequently and you don't know, you didn't predict what our 2 and 1 was, I don't know what to tell you.
And I'm sure we have some friends who listen that love this as an inside joke. Is they're going to go, well, I bet your number 1 is going to be Journey into Imagination.
Yeah.
It is not. Are we ready to move on to number 1?
Yeah, sure.
And our collective number 1 is Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, which, if you haven't heard, listen to our episode on Patreon where we talk about
the music.
We rank all the songs.
Yeah.
On Cosmic Rewind. So let's just do kind of a big overview of this ride if you have not been to Disney World recently. I know there's probably a good chunk of people who've been on this ride. We love debating what the best song is to ride the ride to. So let me pull back again and explain. This ride has a great long interactive queue, which features the different stars from Guardians of the Galaxy. It is great. It's fun. It's probably one of the most exciting queues that you can go through. And then the ride itself is the smoothest, most entertaining roller coaster that I think I've ever been on before. So they have projections on the walls and your cart is spinning. So even though you're on a roller coaster, imagine that there is, in the very bottom, there is a way for your cart to rotate. So your cart, maybe that's not the right word, car. Your car is rotating while you're going through the ride. But last but not least, if you didn't know what we were talking about with songs, there are 6 different songs that they shuffle that you can listen to as the ride is going. And they're all the songs, not all, but these songs are featured in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, because in the movie, the main character, Star-Lord, he has a bunch of mixtapes from when he was a little boy on Earth, and they become the soundtrack of all 3 movies. How'd I do?
Yeah.
What'd I forget?
Well, that you don't want to ride in the ends.
Yes, because
you can get pretty motion sick here.
Yeah.
But if you're somebody susceptible to that and you're like, yeah, I'm not riding that ride. If you stick to the middle cars, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
And just if you say to the cast member, hey, I kind of get motion sickness, like where is best?
they'll go, okay, go over to car 9.
Yeah, whatever they give you. I will tell you that it is the smoothest roller coaster I've ever been on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that could change. I could go on something new, but this is the smoothest roller coaster I've ever been on. And the visuals are just so amazing. There is one part where you're going and circling around the moon and getting closer.
God, it's so cool.
And you feel like you're orbiting but getting closer, and it's like, whoa, what is that? And the storyline is good. The queue, we hadn't even stepped on the ride yet. We're in that room. And if you've been on the ride, you know which room I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all like, oh, cool, da, 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 da. And then all of a sudden the room goes dark, and then it goes light.
Transforms.
And you're like, wait, what?
We weren't in this room a minute ago.
Yeah, what just happened?
It's very cool.
And it is absolutely spectacularly done.
Yeah.
Except for one thing. If there is a flaw, it is that when that room, when that pre-show is done,
mm-hmm.
and you go through that door on the right, that hallway is like 5 foot wide, and there's 150 people in that room with you
running.
Everybody is just sprinting, because you can go from they put a lot of people in that room, and if you get to the right spot, you've just jumped up in the line by 150 people.
Yep.
Or however many people are in that room. It seems like 150. It's almost like the hack of standing under the umbrella.
Yes.
So,
yep.
If you don't know, you know. Or if you know, I should say. I just, man, this ride is so good. It is so good. And it is worth the wait. It's weird that a virtual queue will have a wait this long.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, man. And I'll do it every single trip. It's amazing.
And if you have opinions on the music, we do too. I don't want to spoil my list.
Yeah.
Let's just say I have some very clear songs that I really, really like. And you and I were very...
We were different.
We were different on our songs that we liked. We agreed with some things, but very different on
the
others.
middle of our list. We were agreement.
Honestly, I was surprised. I think we were both surprised.
Yeah, I was very surprised. Uh-huh. But look, if you haven't been to Epcot to enjoy our number 2 and number 1, then I am not ashamed to say, now Epcot's not known for its rides, right? I'm not ashamed to say that those 2 might be in my top 5 at all parks.
Yeah.
Ratatouille,
it's awesome, but I'd have to think about that.
Right, but you know what's going to be interesting is during our March Madness, a little plug for future shows.
Yeah.
We're doing a March Madness. What we've decided is we're going to pick, so there's going to be 4 brackets, just like there is in basketball.
Yep.
There's going to be a Magic Kingdom, an Animal Kingdom, an Epcot, and a Hollywood Studios bracket.
Right, so think of it as 4 quarters that are going to battle out.
We're going to pick 16 things. This came to me after, I started thinking about the episode that Rob's son did. So when Bennett was on, he didn't, when you said, what are your 3 favorite things from Magic Kingdom?
But I said things.
Right. And he took that literally, and so he had things like, for instance, at Animal Kingdom, he said Pandora itself, the entirety of it.
Right. And I couldn't go, no, that doesn't count. I was like, okay.
So I got thinking, I'm like, let's do it that way.
Yeah.
So we're going to have 16 things, and we're going to put polls, and we're going to have matchups, and we're going to count them down. And we're going to react to it on the show. So you guys get to be a part of the show. It's going to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be interested to see in the Epcot bracket the Remy performance and the Cosmic Rewind performance, mostly because of recency bias, and then the flip side is if you haven't been recently, you've never been on it. So.
Right. See, because that's really interesting too, especially from Europe. So Nick one of the classes Nick teaches is statistics, which I think is very, very interesting. And I was never really a huge math guy, but that was always my favorite thing about math, and I never got to take that class. But I love this stuff. I love stats, and I thought that was interesting, and I never would have thought of that. But the recency bias thing, that's what it's called, right?
Yeah.
So people who are voting, if you haven't been on Guardians of the Galaxy, you're automatically probably not going to vote for that.
Right.
So it completely skews the information.
And the real thing of recency bias is if it's fresher in your mind.
Right.
So
if
like,
you've gone recently.
So like when I first got back from my last trip and I was like, look, Citricos and Narcoossee's are 2 and 3 on my all-time food list.
Yep.
Well, that changed. I mean, they're up there. They're both in my top 5, but they're not both 2 and 3 now because it was just a recency thing.
And the other thing too about that is with rides, it's a whole lot easier to do all the rides and attractions. It's much harder when you're going and you're ranking all the places to eat. If you haven't been to all the places, that's so much harder to do the collection of all of the restaurants versus doing all the rides in all the parks. Much, much harder.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to a lot of the restaurants, and I haven't touched them all. I've been to a lot.
Well,
like a lot of the table service.
I'm assuming that's part of your thing is you want to collect them all and you want to go to all the restaurants.
Yeah.
Well,
if anybody wants to sponsor us so I can go to Victoria and Albert, so I'd appreciate that.
Please do.
Yeah, it's only $525 a person.
I don't think we've ever asked for sponsors before, have we?
No. Right. I don't. We've got magic merch. That's good enough.
Yeah.
So that's our whole list.
Yeah.
You have some honorable mentions, and I have some honorable mentions, so go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm sure we have the same next honorable mention, and that's Soarin'. It's cool. I get tired of it. It's always the same thing. I don't know.
Soarin's honorable mention for me, the reason it doesn't make my list is because of the things we've talked about in the past with the screen. You don't see any bending when you're watching Flight of Passage. You don't see any bending in there. So,
yeah, I had Living with the Land, which I like. I don't like it as much as you, but it's great. It's relaxing.
I get it.
It's an awesome ride. It's funny because it shouldn't be an awesome ride. It's exactly the literally opposite of Guardians of the Galaxy. And it's funny that both are on the list because what that shows is we like a variety in what we like to do on our trip.
Well, and I think Disney does a good job of both ends of the spectrum. Do you have imagination even on your honorable mention?
No, I don't. I love the Figment character. I think they've just, that ride is it's beyond the point of...
It's almost beyond saving.
Yeah. The end of the ride is cool, but not cool enough to really be anything. You know what I put on here as an honorable mention because it's an Omni mover is Nemo. And I don't love that Nemo ride, but I love the fact that it's just going to eat people, and I like...
If we're going to talk attractions, like all across the board, I would put the Seas with Nemo and Friends in general.
Yeah.
So like going in and walking through the aquarium.
I mean, maybe that's something that's on the bracket is just the Seas Pavilion, which includes the aquarium, includes that.
I love going. I like aquariums anyway, but that aquarium is nicer than some like actual aquariums I've been to.
It's great.
I have something on my honorable mention that I know is not really fair, but I put Moana on here. I have not experienced Moana. I can't wait to experience the attraction,
great.
the walkthrough attraction. I think that we had a really good discussion with Ear Scouts, Rob, about how the idea of walkthrough attractions are given much more attention over in Disneyland Paris.
Yeah.
And I think Americans just aren't, they want something quick and move me, like surprise me, do that. Like, I like these walkthrough attractions. I love walking the trails at Animal Kingdom. I joked earlier, like in the opening about how it took them 4 years to give us Tafiti. Yeah. But, it took them a long time, but I think it's really nice. It's well done. I like the interactivity. It's kind of cool. I think it'll be great for kids.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too.
So that's kind of on my honorable mention too. Anything else?
No. Great park.
It's my favorite.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about that a little bit last time.
Not for the rides, but
and exactly why it was your favorite.
Yeah, it's not because of the rides, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with the future of Epcot because I think they're done doing what they're going to do there for a while.
Yeah.
Because they want to turn their attention to 2 major parks that get a lot more visitors. So we'll see how that goes. And they're fine with just having the number of people who show up for the festivals show up, and that's that. And I get it. I understand. They can just go by by festival traffic alone,
Yep.
and not really touch anything else. So, but it was a lot of fun today discussing this list. If you haven't checked us out over on Patreon, it's patreon.com/DizListPod. You can support us over there. You can also go to magicmerch.art and check out our featured design this week, which is the Beverly shirt that we did. That's a lot of fun. And you can check out our other shirts. We've got like 60 plus designs up.
Really?
So yeah.
Wow.
We have a lot of cool designs up. Yeah.
That's good.
60 something.
Sheesh.
I think it's 65 actually. But it's a great big beautiful tomorrow, and tomorrow is just a list away.
Tune in next time and we'll see you real soon.